Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys joining me for today's video and spending some time with me. Always appreciate that. And guys, today I want to send a message to that segment of anglers out there that just don't get it. And what I mean by that, what they don't get is the fact that we do not want to know everything about fishing. You never want to get to the point where there's no mysteries left in fishing. And one of the things I want to get into this is there's a segment of the population, the fishing population out there, the pro forward-facing sonar advocates, that basically gush over the fact that, oh, we're learning more about bass than we've ever known before, and all of the stuff we thought we knew about bass, we know they're not true. That is disgusting that we even know that. And I'm going to explain to you why we don't want to know that, why you never want to know that, and how the process of learning that it has been diminished as far as it has been diminished to the point where it's an insult to the sport and an insult to the bass. So we're going to dig into that in today's video. Before we get started, guys, real quick, I wanted to remind you that Tackle Warehouse has got some really good Labor Day sales going on right now. They've got 15% off almost everything on the Tackle Warehouse website. And if you guys want to take advantage of that, start getting some good fall tackle stocked up, I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description. And if you guys use and bookmark that link, that's a good way to support the channel, because if you guys buy a bag of worms or whatever, the channel gets a small percentage of the commission if you use that link. So big thank you from me and my family for the people that are doing that. Okay, guys, one of the arguments when you're talking about the forward-facing sonar, and again, guys, I don't want to hear it's like, Randy, just give it up, or you're beating forward-facing sonar into the death. That is because it's completely taken over the sport, and you can't ignore the reality of the situation, and you can't normalize something that has been so destructive to our sport. So out of tons of different reasons we have no business with forward-facing sonar, one of the big things that really irks me is the fact that those anglers out there that come across with this thing, it's like, it's such a great tool, because first of all, it's not a tool, it's not just another tool. It's like, I always compare it to like a thermonuclear device is the same tool as a musket or something like that. So you can't ever say that. But anyway, there's a segment of the population that just like I said, they gush over the fact that we're learning more about the bass, and everything we thought we knew about bass is not true. Guys, I hope nobody ever gives in to that point of view, because here's something you can equate it to. Now, let's talk about like a 6 or 7 year old kid at Christmas. It's like the anticipation and the magic and the mystery and the wonderment of Christmas goes to the fact, it's like, what could that be underneath that Christmas tree? It's like, God, there's packages underneath there, it's lit up, it's like it could be anything. And there's this sense of excitement that builds, and this anticipation. And it's like when that kid opens that package and discovers it, you see that excitement in their mind. So reverse that, and it's like, what all of a sudden, say for example, what if that same 6 or 7 year old kid had this device that they could look in their package over there, and it could tell them what's in there before they even open it, and how that diminishes the experience, and how that takes away the wonderment and the magic and that whole everything that makes that sense of anticipation to be so powerful in the human experience. It's the same thing with fishing. Out of tons of different reasons forward-facing sonar sucks, and it's the worst thing that ever happened to fishing, one of the things is it takes away that magic and that anticipation by knowing what's out there. When you shine that cone out there and you can see a school of 5-pound fish sitting on a rock at Lake Ontario, what have you got left? You see them down there, you see them come up and hit your bait, you see them follow your bait, you see them take your bait, you set the hook even before you feel the strike. It's the same with the kid knowing what type of package that they're going to get even before they open it. So from that sense is when you take away that anticipation and that mystery of bass fishing, you diminish the whole experience of fishing on a super deep level out there. And true fishermen, anglers that understand how precious and how special the sport of fishing is, every single one of them I've talked to, and some of them are tournament fishermen, some of them aren't tournament fishermen, the magic and the power behind fishing is not knowing what's there. You don't want to know what's there, because that is the whole point of fishing. If you know what's there, then it's not fishing anymore. It just becomes a commercial venture in catching. So I want to send this message to the people out there that have this distorted view of the benefit that forward-facing sonar brings to fishing because we're learning more about the fish as we go. That's a bunch of bullshit. I'll give you guys another prime example. Back in the mid-1970s, you know, when my dad would take me fishing down at Grand Lake occasionally, we wouldn't go a lot, but we'd go occasionally. And what the deal was is I'd have, we had a trolling motor in the back of the boat. And Dad would let me sit up front and he'd run the trolling motor in the back of the boat. And I remember on trips we went down there, down at Grand Lake, before the developers ruined the lake and stripped out all the willow trees, Grand Lake was full of willow trees everywhere. So we'd be working down this line of willow trees and I'd be throwing my favorite lure, which was an old swimming minnow, sort of like a vibrating crankbait, because that's what I would catch trolling white bass. And I was throwing this swimming minnow to the willow trees, these flooded willow trees. And I remember Dad telling me, it's like, Randy, stop throwing over by those trees. You're just gonna get hung up. Because we didn't know. It's like we did not know that the bass lived in those willow trees. And I just thought you don't cast around the trees because you're gonna get hung up. But what happens through a process of a pure level of fishing over experimentation without technology, just actually getting in there and somebody thinking it's like, you know, bass like to be around stuff. Maybe there's fish inside of those willow trees. And then the next step, you figure out the equipment and the type of technique that will allow you to put the lure inside of those trees in the shady, dark areas. And eventually somebody figured, like D. Thomas back before anyone else, that you could put a jig back in those willow trees, and if you could figure out how to make that jig weedless, you could catch fish in there. But that process of understanding the bass, their behavior and their positions and where they lived at, was done on a pure level. It was done from an experimental level, the physical act of actually fishing to locate and figure those fish are in there. We didn't have some type of an electronic unit that you could just zoom and shone a forward-facing cone into those willow trees to see if there was fish there. Again, that would diminish the whole thing. And one of the most satisfying aspects of my entire fishing career was cultivating and mastering that technique of understanding how bass used heavy cover and mastering the flipping technique. It took me years to do that. And that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be easy. Fishing should not, there's 17, 18-year-old kids should not be able to, and I'm not saying anything about the kids, I'm just saying, let's say any angler. An inexperienced angler should not be able to compete with an experienced angler simply because they have technology that allows them to do that. That, again, that's an insult to the sport, it's an insult to the fish, it's an insult to everything that we hold dear in the sport of fishing. So if you're one of those anglers out there that thinks forward-facing sonar is the greatest tool because we're learning more about the fish and everything we thought we knew about fish is wrong, you're completely looking at this the wrong way. You're looking at it completely backwards. And the point of this, the sooner we get forward-facing sonar, you know, out of the scene, the sooner we can return to that every aspect of fishing that made it great and the sustainable part of fishing. And I'm really encouraged, guys. There's a lot of talk on board right now that you'll probably be hearing over the next 2 or 3 weeks. There's a huge movement, and there's actually action that's being taken to ban forward-facing sonar from the tournaments. You're going to see that on some levels. You know, I can't, you know, unveil it at this point until everything is finalized and substantiated. But it's gotten to the point where people are just, they've had it, they're done with it, they're sick of it. And we've worked hard to get to this point. You know, we fought the good fight, the hard fight over the last 2 years. And I have a feeling it's starting to pay off, so we'll keep you updated. So anyway, I hope you guys are well. We'll talk later.